Hello friends, welcome to CEC Live Lectures. Dear friends, today in this session we are going to continue further in our series on disaster management. Today we are going to discuss on coastal disaster and integral coastal zone management. This is the topic of today's discussion, and for the discussion on the topic we have with us in our studios Professor R.B. Singh. Professor R.B. Singh is a renowned professor of geography and he is from Delhi School of Economics, Department of Geography, University of Delhi. So let's welcome our guest Professor R.B. Singh and let's try to have a vivacious session on coastal disaster. Hello sir, welcome to the lecture.
Thank you Gitika ji. Welcome viewers. We are going to discuss very important topic, coastal disaster, and then also I will try to develop mitigation through integrated coastal zone management. As you know, India has a long coastal line and coastal zone is a very dynamic system. It is a integration of land, ocean and atmosphere. They all interact with each other, and that is why it is called dynamics in nature. The coast contains variety of sensitive ecosystems like mangroves, wetlands, coral reefs, dunes and beaches. According to UN, currently around 40% of the world population live within 100 kilometers of the coast. So you can understand from your own perception type of pressure, type of human activity we are receiving due to intensive urbanization and human development. Since the coast is very dynamic and fragile and it is inhabited by a large number of people, as estimation almost the 40% people, then it is subject to a number of hazards and then subsequently disasters. I would like to bring before you here the one very important statement about IPCC, sea level rise and the coastal zone, how they interact each other. It is very likely that the rate of global mean sea level rise during 21st century will exceed the rate observed in the due to the increase in the ocean warming, and so that is why the sea surface temperature continues to be the very important at present, and loss of mass from glaciers and the ice sheets, and we have highland and lowland interactive system. It is likely that in 21st century and beyond, sea level change will have a strong regional pattern, with some places experiencing significant deviation of the local and regional sea level change. And particularly I would like to tell you the globally China, India, Bangladesh, these are the country facing the we have the impending this type of related disasters. So very quickly I would like to bring before you the important characteristics. It is an interface between many natural ecosystem like a coastal, land, aquatic ecosystem. It is a junction of two environment, so sea and then the lithosphere and particularly the earth surface. Dynamic area with frequently changing biological, chemical and geological attributes. Coastal zone extends landward to the limit of the tidal movements or the influence of the salt spray on salt and vegetation. It includes the sea and all those areas which are periodically covered by the tides. So what are the important emerging issues we must see? As you know, it is a zone of intense ecosystem interaction as well as the zone of human intervention. So naturally we have a variety of human activity emerging from this zone. It is a hub of maximum human activity. It is amongst the most heavily exploited because the sea resources coastal, they are also having a very rich living and non-living resources. It is exposed to rapid urban growth increasing population pressure, expansion of major industry, particularly the tourism, extensive exploitation of marine resources, and so that is why we receive immense threat on the coastal ecosystem. Natural hazards, it includes event-line erosion, storms and associated storm surges, cyclone and tsunamis, flooding and related flooding. Here specifically I would like to mention about the Indian coastal vulnerability, and around 76% of India's coastline is prone to cyclone and tsunami, particularly in the eastern part of the country. The effect of climate change are adding a new and more complex dimension in this process, and it increases the vulnerability. It is expected that climate change will alter number, intensity, frequency, magnitude and complexity of the climate induced hazards. Here I would like to present before you a map showing the coastal hazards, and now you can see but starting from West Bengal to Gujarat coast, we have several vulnerable area, and the several sites, the more and more prone, it may be mangroves, it may be the other type of eroded area, geomorphic landscape, and a deforested land, or even sometime the flooding. Bay of Bengal is a very critical region. India has a coastline of about 7,516 kilometers. Entire coast is affected by cyclone with varying frequency and intensity. Although North Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea generate about 7% of the total world cyclones, but their impact is comparatively high and devastating due to the monsoon characteristics, and particularly when they occur bordering the West Bengal and Bay of Bengal. The Bay of Bengal is the most worst cyclone prone region, and as you know, you will remember the Bhola storm in Bangladesh in 1970, killing about 500,000 people. 1999 you will remember the super cyclone, and almost the 15,000 people died that time. 10,000 almost the human life loss, and 5,000 even the missing people. Many loss of vegetation and all. 16 out of the 35 deadliest tropical cyclone in the world history have been experienced at the Bay of Bengal or surrounding to the Bay of Bengal. In past century, 42% of Earth's tropical cyclone associated deaths have occurred in Bangladesh and 27% in India. So, most important geophysical effects here I would like to bring before you, and one important phenomena is emerging nowadays is a low probability and high intensity extreme events. Whatever recently we experienced, Chennai or Falin or the super cyclone, or even the other this flooding in the different city, these all are the low probability and high impact. So, we are getting a very high impact extreme events. Geomorphic processes like erosion, sediment transport, deposition, sea level changes continuously modify the coastline, and then that is why it accelerates the process of degradation and damage. Gradual inundation of low-lying area and fragile wetlands, rising water tables, salt water intrusion, that is a very important phenomena. And after the tsunami, you can find many places in the Tamil Nadu area salt water intrusion in the groundwater, and so that is why we have totally change in the land use system. Related biophysical impact, global climate change and the threat to accelerated sea level rise aggregate this situation all. What are the important factors? according to census 2011, nearly 48% of India's population from coastal region is currently living in urban area. More than 50% of the town, almost 2,661, and almost 2,827 villages are situated in the coastal region. 64% of slum population from the coastal eastern country also lives in poverty. Coastal states received more than 60% of the investment, and so that is why port development is going on, lot of industrial development. Urbanization in combination with the industrial development continues to bring a lot of the numerous developmental impact in the coastal city and coastal region. And so that is why we have to move towards coastal disaster risk reduction. What is this disaster risk reduction? Is a term used by Sendai Framework of Disaster Risk Reduction, that is the UN initiative taken at the Sendai city in March 2015. Coastal disaster risk reduction depends on the information available on various aspects on coastal habitat, coastal processes, natural hazards and their impact in the living resources by concerned stakeholders of the society. There is need to carry out predictive modeling using existing climate, coastal and topographic data combined with biogeographic information. Sustainable management also depends on the nature of the social system, and particularly when I am using the socialist system means the community living in this region. We have a very diverse type of community living in this region. Eastern side we have the more poor people living, western side we have more richer people living along the coast. Various initiatives taken in India since many years, particularly the identifying the coastal regulation zone and then restricting the construction and industrial activity. But this last in 1999 this super cyclone Orissa coast, more than 10,000 people died and loss of lives have been minimized in recent years, and last falling cyclone in Orissa is one of the best example of the human geoscience approach, how the good governance can reduce the loss of human life. And so that is why for mitigating this I would like to promote integrated coastal zone management, ICZM. It is a first collaborative approach to coastal management undertaken by the United Nations in 1972. Main objective for preserve, protect and develop and restore or enhance the resources of the coastal zone for current, present and the future generation. Many attempts have been made for enhancement of quality of coastal area and ensuring sustainability in the coastal zone. It has been the part of Agenda 21 and the very important aspects of the Rio Declaration. It focuses upon wetlands protection, coastal hazards, cumulative and secondary impacts of development, public access to coast, spatial area management, ocean governance, marine debris management, etc. And here I would like to bring before you the different attributes of ICZM. Dynamicity over the time, so it is not a static, it is a very dynamic program. But we have to take lesson from the history, from the past. Then we have to understand the present, assess the present resources, and then we can predict for the future under the umbrella of ICZM. Governance management, management strategy, system perspective we have to see. System with different type of the coastal landscape, system related to the different type of the coastal community like a fishing community, tourist community, tourist support base area, the agriculturalist, fisherman. Then we have to look also the different type of spatial. So, under integrate coastal zone management, what type of integration? We have to integrate the space, we have to integrate time, we have to integrate sector, and we have to integrate institutional framework under the system perspective. One, I would like to take a definition of ICZM and FAO 1995, I quote, overall objective of ICZM is to provide for the best long term and sustainable use of coastal natural resources and for perpetual maintenance of most natural environment. UNEP 1995, I quote, ICZM is a complement to sectoral planning. It is an adaptive process of resource management for environmentally sustainable development in coastal areas. It is not a substitute for a sectoral planning, but focuses on the linkages between sectoral activity to achieve more comprehensive and long term goals. Unquote. The joint group of experts of the scientific aspects of marine environment protection 1996, I quote, ICZM is a dynamic and continuous process by which progress towards sustainable use and development of coastal area may be achieved. So, few points I would like to bring before you: the evolution, US coastal zone management in 1972, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, that you have to see the preamble, then United Nations Conference on Environment and Development 1992, Rio Declaration, and particularly I would like to here quote chapter 17 of Agenda 21. World Bank, FAO, OECD, they have been on the forefronts for implementing this program. In 1993 to 1993, 75 countries had 217 ICZM programs. In 2002, 145 countries had 622 ICZM programs. Now, it is a very popular all over the world. Now, you can see here the most biologically valuable area, particularly the threatened marine area, more in the Asia and the some part of the Latin America, US and the Mexico coast. That is the most threatened marine area. Most valuable biological area, we have in the Africa, then also in part of Asia, and then also the part of the between the Latin America and the South America and the North America. And most critical area for marine conservation is particularly adjacent to the more threatened marine areas, again coming from Asia and the Latin America. We have a small portion also in the Europe. So, in this context, I would like to mention about site suitability and land use conflict analysis. Due to population pressure, we have to understand the suitable sites for existing and potential use activity in the marine and coastal environment. This is the very important challenge facing coastal planning and management. And here I would like to bring before you the GIS based analytical approach. Optimal sites should be selected. GIS can help in the site suitability analysis, and modeling can be developed. Use conflict modeling and analysis, particularly that identifying the existing and potential characterization and management issues and option. And particularly I would like to mention aquaculture, other water related, incompatible adjacent land use and the water quality issue. Coastal activity and management, particularly you can see we have to look particularly in the residential, agriculture area, recreational activity, protected area, and then several management issues are the following, like water quality, physical damage, recreational fishing. Then other management issues are related to the buffer zone, designing priority use zones, and outcomes particularly suitable if buffers exist, determine the environmental and socio-economic assessment, suitable for aquaculture and variety of other development. So, sustainability model incorporates economic, production, services, goods, society, social, political and cultural system, environment, natural resources, water, air and other raw material and heat. And this triple bottom line is used as a framework for measuring and reporting. What are the areas of concern? Encroachment on beaches and coastal lands, coastal pollution, coastal flooding, over-exploitation, degradation of marine land, erosion, housing, health and drinking water and sanitation related issue, oil spill risk, and then inadequate early warning system. For that, we have to see the problem analysis, definition, qualification, indicators we have to take, we have to develop information system, and then identification of trend and objective. So, database, methodological steps, and then we can have carrying capacity analysis, simulation exercises and variety of other multi-criteria analysis. Land use change and degradation is very important, and particularly I would like to bring here agriculture, fishery, aquaculture, forestry linkages. We have nature, fish stock, recreation, aquaculture, receiving water. Also, many initiative taken, particularly initially by Government of India under the umbrella of the World Bank, and here you can see in Orissa, particularly for the business and economic activity, we have the more allocation. In the West Bengal, again business and economic activity and then capacity building, cyclone shelter. In the Gujarat, particularly the economic component, mangrove restoration, underground system. Many countries also initiated variety of program, like Bangladesh also started in 1970, Indonesia 82 to 99, India also in 1982, we identified Malaysia also in 1986, the Maldives protection and preservation, various acts and the programs were taken into consideration particularly, but the major step I would like to summarize: identification and assessment of issue, development of the policy and plan, then implementation, and then monitoring and evaluation. These are the aspects, and very important to link with the strategic environmental assessment practices, situational analysis, a state of environment, input from stakeholders, and who are the stakeholders? Tourist group, maybe the fisherman association, sensitivity mapping, GIS based mapping, and this ICZMM task I think we have to do, particularly to restore this natural functioning coastal system through involving port trust, local bodies, citizen groups, different associations, and so it is also known as the strategic environmental assessment, particularly the sharing the experiences, discuss, show how this can be integrated, presenting the tools, and then And then we can propose mitigation strategy. We can do the preparedness, evacuation, provision of medical aid, supply of food and safe drinking water. Health related disaster is a disaster is a very, very important nowadays, and that can be done. But this all can be managed in a more integrated way, where creating a culture of safety, enhancing the capacity, sustaining and particularly the sustainable development and disaster management can go together, and for that we have to also bring the early warning system, preparedness. This should be very, very accurate, timely mechanism, government policy, evacuation plan, and finally, this all can be done particularly in combination for dealing with tsunami, cyclone, storm surges and flood, which are exist in the region. Droughts are also little bit problem in some area, and for that the water conservation continues to be the very, very important agenda. Thank you.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for giving us this session. Friends, you are requested to be with us as we are back after a short break. Thank you. Hello friends, welcome back to the session. Friends, as you know that today we are talking on coastal disaster, and for the discussion on the topic we have with us in our studios Professor R.B. Singh. Professor R.B. Singh is a professor of geography and he is teaching in the Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. Now I would like to welcome our guest Professor R.B. Singh once again and would request him to continue further.
Thank you, Vidya ji. Welcome viewers. We are discussing coastal disaster and integrated coastal zone management, and particularly I would like to bring before you two case study. And one case study I am taking from the west coast and one case study from east coast, and then we will try to evolve some common ground and common strategy. Why we need this? Economy and lifestyle is highly dependent upon tourism and fishery, which is mainly coming through coastal zone. And if you will take the one example of fishery, particularly we have a very modern fishery in the western coast and traditional fisheries in eastern coast. So, in eastern side we have little bit poor fishermen, and western side they are relatively more richer people. Coastal zone is under immense pressure, resulting into degradation of the ecosystem in short term and going to affect the livelihood of the people in the long term. A study area, I am taking the coastal zone of Goa. We have talukas, particularly I am going to take coastline 105 kilometers, area 3,702 square kilometer, and almost population according to 2011 census 14.5 lakh. Here you can see the different division. These are location map of the coastal area. If you will see the physical division in Goa, we have the coastal plain, then we have plateau region in the middle, and then we have hills in the outer side. Then we have also the different drainage and the river system exists in the zone, not so big river, but a smaller rivers and tributary. I would like to identify few different type of the coastal ecosystem in Goa. This includes sand dunes, estuaries, mangroves, khajan land, salt pans. More than 70 kilometers on coastline comprise sandy beaches, and here you can see the different type of the beaches and length in kilometers. These are the very well known and attracting a lot of tourists, not only within India but all over the world. Particularly during the Christmas time, we have a very intensive tourist activity in the zone. Then recent years many domestic tourists also go educational tours and variety of other activity. Estuaries, Mandovi and Juari are two important estuaries in Goa. Throughout the course of these rivers, a system of wetlands we have, and then the tidal marshes and cultivated paddy fields are also found. Then we have mangroves, salt pan, mainly in the local consumption in fertilizer industry they use. Mangroves are the very important aspects not only in this Goa but also in the coastal region. Particularly you will remember the Sundarban in West Bengal is very famous. Apart from, we have mangroves in Gujarat area. Around 75% live in Mandovi, Juari and Kumbh-Barjuna canal. These are the some rivers, river area and mangroves area. You can see lot of particularly poor people are depending on these mangrove resources. Another important aspects of the Goa is Khajan land. It is a saline floodplains along the Goa tidal estuaries below sea level at high tide time, lying below the sea level, largely community based. Traditionally also it is managed by the community. Coastal ecosystem where human, plant, fish life are intricately related, and so that is why you can see from the map also this area how these main rivers are there and tributary of the main river, and then the Khajan land surrounding to these main rivers. Land resources very important. Coastal talukas have 61.5 almost percent of share of agricultural land in this state. We have net sown area and also the cropped area, means the also cultivated many times. Groundwater, very abundant opportunity for groundwater recharge due to heavy rainfall during the monsoon time. Coastal low-lying flat agricultural area, sandy and loamy formation. Then we have the, if you will consider the groundwater availability, very deep almost 35%, moderate 65%, and high is a nil. Then you can see this name of river basin and then basin area and average runoff in this. Sand is also a very important resource, and earlier it was a very popular, a lot of exploitation took place, and you can see this annual growth rate is still continuing, but many initiatives taken in the recent years, particularly for illegal mining and encroachment. Tourism started since 1960s. Number of tourists constantly rising after 60s. In 70s, government also identified the growth of tourism and its role in stimulating the Goa economy, and many initiatives taken after 80s. After 2001, the tourists were started floating as a package tourism, cheap flights availability were started attracting the national and international tourists. Here you can see this the fishing activity in the Goa. This is a very important food also for the Goa people, and you can see the different type of the fish available in this area. Other two resources I would like to mention, and the seaweeds found especially in the intertidal zone, and sea grasses. Sea grasses has been found mainly in the newly deposited mud flow area, densely concentration in the track hole estuaries only. I would like to tell you the seaweeds or the sea grasses we do not use much in India, but if you will go to any restaurant in Thailand or the Philippines or Korea or Japan, you can find they use lot of seaweeds and the sea grasses in their food system. So we have a vast these resources, but we are not able to use particularly for the food purpose. Critical problem if I would like to identify, and particularly based on the people's knowledge, because a study has been done also by my students, and they identified changing land use again the coastal zone is a very important first problem. 31% responded told about that. Second, rapid and concentrated urban development. Second, third, lacking haphazard infrastructure development. Then pressure of tourism, pollution and other anthropogenic activity. Change of land use is a very important aspect, and if I am telling the land use is a very important aspects of in present day. It is not only physical, chemical and biological processes on the one hand, but the societal responses, human responses on the other hand. Increasing population and number of tourists in Goa, especially in coastal strips, are leading to land use, land cover change. Changing land use is skewed towards residential sectors, and it is adversely affecting the natural ecosystem in this zone. Land conversion due to tourism and urban development has created problems over the traditional land use like Khajan lands. Here you can see urban pressure index we have prepared, low in the southern part, moderate in the northern part, we have the very high, and moderate and high in the northern part of the Goa. Increasing and concentrated tourism growth, if you will see, we have low tourism particularly in southern part, high in the middle part. Same thing, you can see the growth of tourism in the coastal zone, it is a very high in the northern side. And naturally, we have the problem coming through pollution, coming through waste generation. We have touristic activity through domestic wastes and other type of the industrial and civil waste, and we have more high in the southern side also because high concentration of population. Few important problems I would like to identify, particularly Khajan ecosystem, inundation, transfer of ownership, urbanization, development of Konkan railway, pollution, salinization and intensive agriculture. These are the very important problem one can see, and this is a common problem almost all coastal region of India. Coastal erosion, particularly land reclamation, extraction of sand, also the construction activity, then loss of mangroves and estuaries. I would like to mention about these mangroves are also used extensively. Fishing, apart from transportation, fishing, dumping domestic and industrial waste, this is also the very important problem in the estuarine areas. Some of the species are already on the verge of extinction. Many places you can see reclaimed some for the urbanization and construction. And so, critical area zonation is a need of the hour. 5 factors have been taken into consideration: land conversion, urban pressure, tourism pressure, pollution and infrastructure development. Weightage have been given through the multi-criteria analysis, and the we have identified the factors. Mapping these factors, we have identified the high, moderate and low critical areas. On basis of the problem, different statistical units have been given scores. Such type of the maps are very important, particularly the prioritizing the problem. We cannot solve our problem together, so we can prioritize the problem, and prioritization can be done using this multi-criteria analysis, quantifying them. Here you can see we have taken land use change, particularly the land conversion, urbanization, in the infrastructure development, tourism pressure and pollution problem, and then we have taken into consideration of the critical index analysis. And here you can see the environmental critical area in the coastal region: low, particularly in the southern side and extreme north; moderate, and the center part we have the very moderate type of the, and high, particularly again in the middle part. So, the outer side low, critical, then we have the moderately critical, and then we have highly critical in the center part. No doubt several government management strategies started, many organizations came into existence and they are promoting, many acts, Fisheries Act, Ports Act, Coast Guard Act, Wildlife Protection Act, intensive coastal zone notification, then ICZM, ocean observation information services, Ministry of Environment and Forest, particularly they are responsible for management of resources in the coastal water, nodal mining with major responsibility for predicting the marine environment, Department of Ocean Development, particularly the scientific monitoring and during the high seas, agriculture looking after the Ministry of Department of Fisheries, Aquaculture, fish processing, water resources, the erosion activity, defense, particularly the Coast Guard pollution response measures including the oil pollution, Ministry of Surface Transport, Ports and Shipping, petroleum and natural offshore installation, tourism activity and Ministry of Mines, mining activity in the region. If you will see these spatial aspects of management, priority areas have been identified. The high, naturally this one is a very critical area also. So, these are the also priority areas. Then for different tourist sites and have been identified, priority areas for infrastructure development, and particularly the southern side is require the more emphasis. If you see the priority area for urban management, then we have to see the highly upper part of the high critical area, and then priority areas for the land use planning, that is needed everywhere, and particularly here land use planning based on environmental zoning. I would like to propose this concept particularly. If you see the sectoral aspects, land resources. So, under land, what are the important area? Mangroves, vegetation, estuarine area, coastal shelter belt, sand dune park, naturally formed pathway, particularly for the constructing roads. If you will come to the water resource sector, then population growing faster, so we need also the water. So, how this water management can be done, disposal of untreated water, how we can do, sewage effluent, recycling, and the fish landing centers. If we consider the tourism sectors, particularly preference should be given for the new resorts and the hotels. Particularly we have to disseminate these hotels, not the people should concentrate and live in the few places only. Tourism facilities should be developed by developing infrastructure, fisheries, technological improvements, marketing, cold storage, road linkage transportation, facilities to workshop and repairing their boats. These are the very important, and nowadays boats are using lot of GPS and other facility in the western side. So, they require also the service center and all. Major challenges for the implementation. Still we have confusion regarding the boundary of the coastal zone, different types of the coastal zone. So, we have to develop the such mechanism, and particularly I would like to tell you that a spatial, sectoral and institutional integration we should do in a balanced way. Then tourism, very important activity, and curtailing, involvement of local people, level of awareness and strict implementation of the CR coastal regulation zone. I would like to very briefly a study of Visakhapatnam. It is a major port and leader in the cargo handling. Primary activity are industrial, high rate of urbanization, literacy rate is also, but vulnerable to cyclone and storm surges, and here we need lot of early warning system and all. Great tourism potential. Agriculture contribute 5 to 8% of state agriculture produce, and so that is why we have the massive land degradation in agricultural patches due to the soil erosion and salinization. Fisheries also in the Visakhapatnam area particularly, but the fishery, not we have a very large scale fishery, we have environmental risk, the farming, carrying capacity consideration, convergent of upland rice fields, lot of area were converted into the shrimp farming also in this east coast, and so that is why mangroves forest were cut and they removed. Forestry continues to be the very important in this zone, and it is the second highest dense forest cover. But we found earlier the diversion of forest land for the non-forest activity, loss of beach vegetation has led to beach erosion also. No doubt we have to promote the JFM and other type of the community forestry program in this zone. So, I would like to identify the few important economic and social causes of coastal degradation in this area by JAG. Rapid industrial growth, port, then we have the special economic, after a special economic zone, lot of environmental degradation, pressure coming through the domestic sewage, flora and fauna, the lot of demand and for people use this, poor people, industrial effluence, oil exploration and mining. Then what are the impact? Impact can be seen in like a lot of anthropogenic in the activity in the entrance of the channels of rivers, discharge increased very heavily. Then also we have the lot of hydrographic and biotic changes, nutrient level analysis also needed in this area. So, vulnerability in Visakhapatnam shows the moderate high vulnerability, particularly for the cyclone and storm surges, and long back we had the big cyclone killing the lot of people. Andhra Pradesh coast is the most vulnerable to tropical cyclone, 32% cyclone that from the Bay of Bengal make in this zone. So, the early warning and cyclone tracking system, tsunami, these are the very, very important. Particularly, I would like to mention about the policy response, and the coastal regulation zone notification need to be implemented at a very appropriate level. National and state coastal zone management authorities are there, but we need some stakeholder consultation and engagement of stakeholders, and also the integration for the state coastal zone and the national coastal zone. CRZ coastal zone notification also the authority should be particularly responsible for implementing this, and the accountability should be involved. Lot of difficulty in this area for evolving this implementation, but there is a battle between a long term resource management and short term economic goals, because the lot of the program came for the short term. Then sectoral regulatory, now the new state they have the own vision, and they are trying. So, we need to develop the regulatory mechanism, particularly for the sectors. Limited interagency coordination need to be improved, limited prioritization of the multiple usage, plus principle of EIA, and particularly I would like to mention the strategic environmental assessment method. Government of Andhra Pradesh has started a lot of initiative for the disaster identification and the risk assessment preparedness. Now, here you can see the integrated coastal zone management framework, Central Planning Commission, Ocean Development, then Andhra Pradesh administration, then academic institution, scientific. These are the key findings. Visakhapatnam has adequate forest coverage, which is higher than the average of most industrial town. Climate is semi-arid. Maximum proportion of the total geographical area under transport land use. Direct interlinkages between the coast people and turn the coastal environment as a platform. So, we have to see the human biophysical phenomena, and also inducing the short and long term impact with each other. We have to identify the potential harmful beneficial effects, socio-economic dimension of the coastal vulnerability. Then coastal zone notification continues to be the very, very important. Lack of coordination mechanism need to be improved, particularly through the stakeholder engagement. Many suggestions I would like to bring before you, particularly the digital governance, the information technology, the site strategic plan, integrating with the community. And when I am telling the community, means agriculture community, fishing community, tourist, then tourist association, fisherman association, all we have to involve. Finally, I would like to conclude that the Indian coastal region is prone to multiple hazards like cyclone, flooding, tsunami, storm surges and sea level rise. The extent to which these occur are likely to increase under scenario of climate change. As more and more people start to coming to the coast, their vulnerability of these hazards will also increase. Any assessment of coastal vulnerability must not only include the physical aspect, but also the human dimension and the human component, particularly the institutional dimension. There is a need to design adaptive and mitigation strategy for sustainable development of coastal zone, and geospatial technology can play a very important role. And I would like to tell you, ICZM is key to disaster risk reduction and sustainability in the coastal region. Thank you very much.
With this, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for giving us this session. Friends, you are requested to write to us at info.cec@nic.in. We are taking your leave with the promise that we are going to meet again soon. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.